call the October 4, 2011 meeting of the Buncombe County Commission to order. And today we have the pleasure of having two scouts that are going to do our Pledge of Allegiance. If Brian and David Head from Troop 91 could come up, I'd ask you to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance today. I believe these gentlemen are working on their Citizenship Merit Badge, and we're glad to have you here.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Brian and David. We appreciate your help. Next order of business is we will have an invocation, and I'll call on Vice Chair Stanley to give us our invocation tonight.
Let us pray. God, our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, this beautiful, glorious day, and all your many blessings to us. We ask especially this day you bless our deliberations as we do the business of this fine county. Lord, especially hold our troops in the loving hands, protect them as they protect us, bless them and their families, and especially the Murphy family, Lord, for the young Marine killed a couple of months ago from our county. But as they perform these selfish acts, keep them in your loving hands. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. In accordance with our Code of Ethics adopted by the Commission, it's the duty of every Commissioner to avoid actual and apparent conflicts of interest. Does anyone know of any apparent or actual conflict of interest on any matter coming before us tonight?
No, sir.
Then we will proceed. Is there a motion to follow the agenda as presented, including adoption of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Been a motion by Commissioner Peterson, a second by Vice Chair Stanley. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We will follow the agenda as presented, 5-0. We have good news. We have Kathy Hughes, our clerk extraordinaire, is going to tell us about an award that we have won. Kathy Hughes, thank you.
Well, you know, it's always my pleasure to get to come and talk about the amazing, talented folks that I work with. This time, I just want to say, every time we win something, I don't come up here. We've decided to only pick the ones that are really, really good to brag about, because it is very difficult to brag. I even invited the folks who are really the brains behind this to be here, and they wouldn't come. So I'm doing the honor today, and I'm happy to do that. As you know, we launched buncombecounty.org, a new website back in May. We are continuing to tweak it and make it better, but in the meantime, we submitted it for a national award to the National Association of Government Webmasters, which is a national all the government, cities and counties compete in this. And we had to compete in the largest population category, which means people of populations over 150,000, which is the most difficult category, because that's where you get up against people who have a lot of money and a lot of staff, and lots of times even go outside and have their websites done, which we don't. We do ours in-house. So that's why this is amazing. And I also want to remind you why, there's the beautiful website you can see on the screen, why we do this, why we submit for awards. It's not just so we can brag. That's part of it, because we like to do that. But another part of it is to get people to judge us and look at us and tell us how we could do better. And this time they did, and the judging results are actually out on the website. You can actually see what they're telling us we should improve. But what I'm here to brag about is we not only won the Pinnacle Award, which is the best of the best, we won the Peer Award, which means all the webmasters looked at all the websites and judged, and we won that one too. So we won the two top awards. And you say, well, what does that mean? We beat the city of Boston and Boulder, Colorado, which are pretty big dogs in the competition. So we are very proud of it. You should be proud of it. Our citizens should be proud of it. And they're the folks who are the brains behind this. A lot of us have something to do with it. I'm proud to have been a part of it, but there are the brains that made this actually happen. That's the talent. And those folks are very dedicated to the county. Anthony Perron's our graphic designer, Ben Atkins, our web assistant, and then Jeremy Twiggs is our webmaster. And they're very dedicated to the county. They love what they do. they're UNCA products, so they're Western North Carolina talent, but trained here. So we're very proud to work with them, and they love to do this. So on their behalf, I tell you, it's wonderful, and we're very proud to have the #1 website, at least for a little while.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well done. Well done.
Thank you, Kathy. We are mighty proud, and the website is in pink right now. Is that right?
Yes, we are pink for October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Thank you. Next, we have a Mission Hospital update. We have Dr. Ron Paulus, fresh from several fundraisers I've shared with you in the past week. Dr. Paulus, come up. Let's see, I'm going to have, Commissioner Bailey is going to introduce you and tell us a little bit about you, and we appreciate you being here, Doctor.
Good to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm delighted to introduce Ron Paulus, the CEO of Mission Health System. It's been on board since September of 2010. Came from the Geisinger Health System in Danville, Virginia, where he was the Executive VP for Clinical Operations and was the Chief Innovation Officer. The hospital board went through an exhaustive search, and Dr. Paulus stood out head and shoulders above all the folk that were in that process. Someone asked me the other day, what does the Mission Health System include? It includes not only Mission Hospital, but McDowell and Blue Ridge Hospital and Angel and Transylvania and Mission Medical Associates and the Healthcare Foundation. Dr. Paulus is making a number of changes, and I'm sure he will talk about those. He's married with 3 children. He is the first CEO for the Mission Health System that's not only has an MBA in healthcare management, he's also a medical doctor as well. And his MD was from the School of Medicine at the University of Pennsylvania, and his MBA from the Wharton School at also the University of Pennsylvania. I guess the best way to sum up Dr. Paulus is that he's the right person at the right time for the Mission Health System, and we're delighted you're here today.
Thank you. Nice to be here. In case you're wondering about the technical aspects here, I had prepared some notes actually, and I forgot them. I was going to see if I could bring them back up, but it's going to be nothing but memory. So, for better or worse. K-Ray, you highlighted the fact that this has been a bit of a milestone for me, having just crossed over 1 year. Still standing, glad to say, and enjoying my life in Western North Carolina and in Asheville. When I think back over that year, it's almost like New Year's. You have to reflect and think about the things that have been successful, those that haven't been successful, and what the future may hold. When I look back, fortunately, most of what I see has been mostly successful, and all the credit goes to my teammates and my board, for creating the circumstances in which a lot of that work is possible. And I think about a couple of different areas. First, at Mission, we've adopted something called our bigger aim. And that aim is to get each and every patient to their desired outcome, first without harm, that sort of goes without saying, also without waste, increasingly important, and lastly with an exceptional experience. And that's what we strive for. We're not perfect, but we do our best every day to see if we can get better, and we've made some progress in that regard over the course of the last year. Lots of things have changed. First, I'll talk about some new programs. As part of our bigger aim, we opened up the Office of Patient Experience, a single site within our institution to try to collect the stories, both good and bad, so that we can learn from our mistakes and use those to drive ourselves continually forward in terms of our journey towards this bigger aim that I just described. We've also added some people. Dr. Bill Maples joined us as my first hire from the Mayo Clinic, both in Rochester and in Florida. He became the first Chief Quality Officer at Mission Hospital and Mission Health System. He's a former medical oncologist who devotes his entire time and energies now to driving our performance forward. And I'm incredibly delighted to say that in the first 6 projects that we undertook, focusing on urinary tract infections, focusing on central line infections, and a variety of other areas, that we've exceeded all of our targets and goals, and we've reduced that harm that we do cause, although Mission was already one of the better places in the nation, by from 25 to 50% over the course of one single year's time. That's a testament to our frontline bedside nurses, our physicians, our other caregiver team members, and to Bill, who's been a leader. I've also recently just had join me just this week a new president and chief operating officer for Mission Hospital. Her name is Jill Hoggard Green. She's a nurse by original training, an oncology nurse, as it turns out, and who went on to get her PhD in management and quality, spent almost 20 years with Intermountain Health System in Utah, and most recently was a regional operating officer for Peace Health in the western United States in the Oregon region, and was glad to come here because her statement was that only the beauty of Western North Carolina could have pulled her from the beauty of Oregon. So she's a wonderful addition, another clinician as part of the senior management team. I could go on and on. We've added lots of new physicians. We've hired additional trauma surgeons, our first pediatric orthopedist, who's had an influence already on even my own daughter, who after an ankle injury said, "Dad, I didn't know women could be orthopedic surgeons." And I said, "Absolutely, anything you want." So she's already made a terrific impact, and it's been a nice addition to the broader Mission family. We've had, it hasn't been all smooth sailing. We've had our share of challenges. And I think the old saying goes that politics makes strange bedfellows. And as far as I'm concerned, I'd rather keep, no offense, the politicians out of my bed because they've been a little bit closer to home than I might have wanted. As you're all no doubt aware, it started out with Senator Jim Davis's bill that was introduced and fortunately didn't go anywhere, that would have restricted Mission from frankly operating as a hospital or a health system. All the things that all of our competitors are doing on a daily basis that is occurring all around the United States, this bill would have, had it been allowed to go forward, restricted us from, what I call oxygenating, hiring doctors, affiliating with other institutions, and so forth. And although that bill died an appropriate death, in my personal view, some of the detractors who spend quite a fair amount of time focusing on how they can undermine and disempower what we're trying to do here at Mission has not gone away. We added, for example, 2 critical access hospitals to the Mission Health System just this past year, Transylvania Medical Hospital and Angel Medical Center. Those are institutions that are under significant duress, trying to figure out in the new healthcare landscape with the state and federal budgetary problems that we have, how are they going to keep serving their communities? We were able to provide them with support and assistance, again, something that would have been blocked by Senator Davis's bill. That work goes on. But coming back to the strange bedfellows, we do have a hearing coming up on October 20th. That hearing is to review the so-called Certificate of Public Advantage that Mission has operated under for more than 15 years. For those that aren't aware of what that is, and it's a technical thing, the origins really came from the business community. The goal of the business community to be able to have a contract with both Mission and St. Joe's hospitals, their desire to try to improve the efficiency and affordability of health care in their community, and there were also some issues with, St. Joe's financial performance at that time, where they were having some early signs of struggle. The parties got together and formed a local solution to bring those 2 hospitals together. We were asked, and we voluntarily agreed to operate on a going forward basis under this Certificate of Public Advantage, something that had been done a couple of other times around the country, including South Carolina. And there were some requirements that we had to meet in operating under that arrangement, including saving at least $72 million in the first 5 years, operating under restrictions on what our costs could be so that we couldn't become fat, dumb, and happy and just become a bloated arrangement. Also restrictions on our operating income. So that's gone on until this time. I think it's been shown to be a proven success. I know, for example, that it was touted by the Federal Trade Commission as one of the nation's leading solutions of how to make sure that bigness doesn't create badness. We had requested recently that some of the terms of that agreement be shifted. Long story short, back to the October 20th meeting, we have a so-called study commission that the House of Representatives, the House has in Raleigh has put forth. It's studying a number of different things, including certificate of need laws and other things that make people go to sleep at night when they read about them. But one of those things, for reasons that aren't apropos to today's comments, is to look at the certificate of public advantage. We believe that this is something that is not what we would like to see happen, and we've had detractors that have pushed this agenda forward. They're from much better financed out-of-area health systems that operate without any of the restrictions that we do. My personal belief is it's solely related to their desire to keep them from having competition in their environments. So interestingly enough, that meeting is in Henderson County, not in Buncombe or Madison counties, the two counties to which the Certificate of Public Advantage applies. And they'll no doubt be citing things that I'm regularly blamed for that I think we all share some history in, and you know better than me, and whether we did or didn't steal the water in Henderson County, and whether we did or didn't steal an airport, and whether we did or didn't steal a whole series of things over the last couple of hundred years that I'm reminded of on a daily basis. But in sort of bringing this to a close, although we have our challenges, and nobody would not look at the state and federal levels, Mission Hospital is now #1 on the list that we don't want to be #1 on. That's the worst payer mix in the state of North Carolina and one of the worst in the nation. Approaching 80% of our patients now pay us substantially below our actual costs, not the charges. What's it cost for our labor? What's it cost for utilities? Almost 80% pay us below those costs or pay nothing at all. We don't feel bad about that in the sense that that's our mission. We're a community-owned asset. We're here for nothing but to serve the community. We take care of everyone regardless of their ability to pay. But the truth is we have our own challenges in terms of, how do we survive under that environment? And we strongly believe that the detractors who are seeking to impose inconceivable restrictions on our ability to operate don't care, what happens to us. And there are visions of the future where, Mission and Mission Hospital do not make it. It pains me to have to say that, but it's the truth. There are very few places anywhere in the United States that have the payer mix that we do, that operate with the services that we do, that don't have a dramatic subsidy coming from state or local government. We don't have that, and we're not asking for it. We're just asking to be able to do the things that we need to do. We contributed $74 million in community benefit alone last year, just in 2010. Related to charity care, related to grants made to community programs, working with my colleagues who I see across the room. And we want to keep doing that. We're not complaining about it. We enjoy doing it. But I just want to say that our success will be determined not only by our skill at operating and the teams that we're building and all of the great quality work that we're doing, but we need support from this community. I think it's easy to think that, the place on the hill with all those buildings is always going to be there. And I don't want to be melodramatic and raise concerns that are, fueling fears or fires. But mark my words, left to their own devices, a very small number of detractors in Raleigh, fueled by people in our own local region, will cause us problems that we will not be able to operate our way out of. And we have to have support of our citizenry and our government And so I would encourage everyone here to go to a website that we've created called True Mission, one string, the word true, the word mission, .org, to learn all about the challenges that we face. Final statement, notwithstanding all of that, I remain completely optimistic and elated about the future. I came here and voted with my feet and my family because of the opportunity that I saw, the opportunity to serve a region that was proud and self-sufficient and who'd overcome many obstacles over time, that needed a great health system as part of that community, that was willing to do great things in terms of quality and efficiency improvement, and where, you know, families still understood what it meant to be a family. And I've received nothing but support in that regard. That's what we're committed to. That's what we will do. Together we'll do it. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or receive any comments that you have. And I apologize for not having polished remarks.
Pretty polished. Any questions, Dr. Paulus?
Well, I think the fact that you're here today communicating to us and to the folks who are here and the folks who will see this on BCTV, and I think that's a great step, and we appreciate it so much.
I'm glad to be here. I appreciate the opportunity and be happy to come back whenever you'd like.
Thank you.
Doctor, what's the normal mix of payors?
So for a normal hospital, the average hospital in America would have about 50 to 55% of its patients coming from governmental payers or self-pay, and about 45% coming from commercial insurance or managed care. Just to give you one number you can stick in your hat, it's one of those numbers like, you got to be kidding me. If we did exactly what we do today, on exactly the same patients with exactly the same doctors, exactly the same staff, however efficient or inefficient we are, and we just happen to pick our health system up and move it eastward and drop it down in Raleigh or Chapel Hill or Durham or Greenville or you name the place, we would generate an extra $100 million per year. You hear the word I said? 100 million. That's how far behind the 8 ball we start when we get up in the morning and put our shoes on and tie them up like everybody else. We're lacing up $100 million behind. And, you know, that's the story of our demographics. That's the story of our employment outmigration of manufacturing and textiles, the relative preponderance of hospitality and other segments in this region, which is why business development and all that is so important. And yet, very better financed institutions from outside our region are lobbying every day to tie. We already have one hand behind our back, and they want to tie the other one. What we want is the freedom to serve. The freedom to serve. That's why we're here, for our community, and it boggles my mind as to why this outside antagonism is consuming so much time and energy within our health system.
Bad.
Dr. Paulus, when did you say that that hearing was? Were you asking for people to come to the hearing on behalf of Mission, or were you just kind of giving us FYI?
The study commission hearing is October 20th. It's the Ag Center in Henderson County, and I don't want to turn the thing into a circus, although I know, our antagonists will in fact turn it into a circus. But we, anybody who wanted to come, what I really would like is to have people to go to that truemission.org website. We've included our own comments. We've included our detractors' comments. There's nothing hidden. You'll see the facts, in an unvarnished way, and draw your own conclusions. Okay. About whether you think Mission Hospital and Mission Health System are an important part of the community, and whether what we're being asked to do is fair and appropriate.
Thank you.
Good.
How is the actual vote of the certificate advantage? Is it made in Raleigh, or is it going to be made at this meeting?
We've operated under this Certificate of Public Advantage for more than 15 years. It's overseen by the Department of Health and Human Services at the state level. Most recently, when we asked for an outside a review of this, they not only reviewed it themselves, but they took it to Washington and had it reviewed by the FTC and the DOJ. All three of them signed off on their most recent iteration. We didn't get everything we wanted, but life never gives you everything you want. We think it's balanced for the time being. I personally believe that the competitive environment has shifted so dramatically since the time that this was instituted that it needs to go away in its entirety at some point. But we're happy to live within the constraints. But we have a very, and I must emphasize this, a very, very small number of folks in the region that have ties to Raleigh that are driving, this agenda forward. And if a study commission wants to be set up because somebody has the power to set one up and address these issues, then it'll be set up. And that's the circumstance we're in.
Okay, so there's no agreement or disagreement with the certificate advantage by the study commission. This is just something the General Assembly set up to.
Yeah, this study commission was set up by the General Assembly.
Okay.
But
But they're not going to approve or disapprove. It's folks elsewhere.
Right. Their only question would be that post quote unquote study, whether they would reinstitute legislation, whether it was Senator Davis's or somebody else's, that would provide incremental ties. My view is, and I thought that's what the folks in Raleigh were articulating, that there's a good role for government, get me right, but micromanaging one particular business entity out of all the other ones in the state, I'm not sure is a good idea.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Paulus?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have a public hearing on the changes to, or vacation rental proposal, Chapter 78, Article 6 of the County Code, and I'll recognize Assistant County Manager John Creighton to go over this prior to the public hearing. Mr. Creighton?
Mr. Chairman, board members, we're here tonight, as you said, to talk about amendments to the zoning ordinance as it relates to rooming houses and vacation rentals. Back in September 1st, the Planning Board had a public hearing. The Planning Board voted 5-1 to go ahead and recommend the changes to the board. Tonight, Tom Alexander's here, who's chairman of the Planning Board. Just kind of wants to talk to you and give you a little bit of background, the process that we went through, and a little bit of the history on how things developed. I have to say that this has been a long process. I think one of the longest ones other than steep slopes that I've dealt with. After Mr. Alexander gets finished, Debbie Trumpy, the planning department, is going to come up and do a short PowerPoint presentation just to go through those proposed changes. So I'd ask Mr. Alexander to come up, please.
Okay, and I'd also recognize Joe Seckler, also on the Planning Board. Are there any other Planning Board members here tonight? Okay.
I believe that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Alexander, good to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Unlike Dr. Paulus, I brought some notes the old-fashioned way. And I'd like to read from them if I may.
Yes, sir, certainly.
And my goal is to give you just a snapshot of what we've been through over the last 10 or 12 months regarding this issue. And I know it's been submitted to you at one time before, I think in May, and then we kicked it back, and I kind of let you know how we got where we are today. The Planning Board first addressed the subject of vacation rentals sometime in late 2010. I think it was about December of 2010. One of the first things we learned out of the box that we've got over 1,000 vacation rentals in our community right now. I think I've heard the number 1,500, 1,800, this type of thing. And they're scattered through a variety of the zoning districts. Since we started down this road, with exception of maybe a couple times, this subject's been on our agenda twice a month. During that time, we've consulted with the staff and we've heard from the public sector. On 2 occasions, staff and either I or our Vice Chair, Bernie Kessel, met with representatives of the Chamber of Commerce and their members from the hotel and B&B industries. The vacation rental topic attracted comments from primarily 3 different interest groups. Those opposed to vacation rentals in existing areas such that are existingly zoned as R1, R2, or RLD, the hotel and B&B industry that sought to level the competitive playing field with vacation rentals that currently are out there now and in the future as well, and the vacation rental homeowners and property managers that sought to preserve vacation rentals as a viable option for visitors to our community. Those that spoke against vacation rentals in areas zoned as residential were primarily from neighborhoods that had standing HOAs or POAs, homeowners associations or property owners associations. Some of us, I think, felt that modifications to their existing covenants, to their HOA or PO bylaws, were the proper way possibly of policing vacation rentals within their units. And it is advised by the county attorney's office, Michael, those association covenants, if they were adopted, would trump anything that you would pass here today anyway. The hotel and B&B industry sought to level the playing field by requiring such things as permitting and inspections for vacation rentals and creating some method of ensuring that vacation rentals were also subjected to occupancy taxes. Now, it came out at one of our many hearings in this type of thing that it was reported that occupancy taxes are paid by certain segments of the vacation rental sector, and particularly those managed by property managers. So not all are not paying occupancy tax. I didn't want to lead you down the road that nobody's paying occupancy taxes, because some apparently are. In early July, we were prepared to open a discussion at our board meeting about establishing some regulatory language that would address permitting, et cetera. John and I had talked about this briefly, and we wanted to bring it out to our other board members and see if it got some legs. However, about 15 minutes before the beginning of our meeting, and that's not an exaggeration, on a Monday, we were notified that the North Carolina Senate had passed a bill that previous Saturday at about noon, when they adjourned, that barred the ability of any locally governing body to regulate the vacation rental industry. The other segment, the vacation rental property owners and property managers, wanted to allow vacation rentals in residential areas as well as preserve rentals in those zoning classifications that were already permitted. The Planning Board has recommended to you tonight that single vacation rentals be permitted in all zoning districts. However, and upon consultation with our staff, we felt that vacation rental complexes, which you'll hear the definition of here in just a minute, should be conditionally allowed in those areas zoned as R3 through open use. At the end of the day, this turned out to be, as John said, a much more complex topic than we ever thought it was. And I don't think we made anybody happy. So that speaks volumes, I guess. But that's a snapshot of where we've been. I think some of you know that over the last 10 months. And we come before you tonight with a resolution for your consideration. I'll turn it over to you, Debbie.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Ms. Trumpy?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, just want to go through a PowerPoint I have just highlighting the changes that are being proposed. Right now we have rooming houses and vacation rentals classified in the same category, and they really are different uses. They have different types of tenants and different lengths of stay. We have lots of scenic vistas and areas in the county where people come to get away and not to stay downtown, but to retreat. And traditionally, a lot of our seasonal homes have been rented as vacation homes. We also have a number of retreat centers like Ridgecrest and Montreat, where nearby housing has traditionally been rented as vacation rentals. These rentals were allowed prior to the adoption of countywide zoning in December of '09, and the proposed changes will bring those non-conforming existing uses into compliance. We recognize that the impact of 4 or 5 clustered units is different than of one home, and we have broken vacation rentals out into 1 or 2 homes and then into larger units so that we can differentiate and mitigate potential impacts on those from those larger clusters on surrounding neighborhoods. Staff reviewed a number of ordinances within North Carolina, both municipalities and counties. And we did look at North Carolina rather than other states because our enabling legislation is different. And a lot of people did make proposals that we include certain things in our ordinance that we just couldn't do because of North Carolina regulations. We received requests because of the economic downturn from realtors and people who were wanting to turn their homes into vacation rentals. They either were second homes that they were unable to sell, or they were in jeopardy of foreclosure. They wanted to permit those homes in more districts. And we looked at it, and vacant properties, particularly foreclosed properties, do reduce surrounding property values and pose security issues for neighborhoods. The Planning Board began reviewing proposed standards in December of last year. The standards were developed with considerable public input and were eventually modified to meet concerns from the hotel industry regarding the length of stay. There were many Planning Board meetings that had vacation rentals on the agenda. In addition, we took public input via email, phone calls, and other venues such as meetings at the Chamber and with realtors and hotel representatives. The proposed changes, number one, are in definitions. Right now, rooming houses are defined as a house where lodgings are provided for rent by the week or month. The new proposal eliminates the time limit and adds the requirement that the owner or operator maintain resident at the site. Also, for more than 10 units, it is considered a hotel, so that would be only permitted in areas where hotels are permitted. The definition of vacation rental currently is a house where lodgings are provided by the week or month. Now, we have broken that out into two separate. Vacation rental being no more than 2 homes with no more than a total of 9,000 square feet rented for at least 2 days. And a vacation rental complex is more than 9,000 square feet total, or 3 to 10 rental units. And in that case as well, more than 10 units is considered a hotel and would only be permitted where hotels are permitted. Currently, rooming houses are permitted in R3, NS, CS, PS, OU, and conditionally in EMP. The only change we're proposing with this is that they would also be allowed conditionally in the R2 zoning district. R2 is very similar to R3 in that it allows planned unit developments, which are multifamily units up to 12 units per acre. So they're very similar. Currently, rooming houses are not allowed in the steep slope high elevation or protected ridge overlays, and that would remain the same. Rooming houses greater than 10 units are considered a hotel, and no residential districts except for OU allow hotels. They also are allowed in NS. So that means rooming houses that are greater than 10 units would only be allowed in CS, PS, OU, and conditionally in the EMP districts. So that's commercial service, public service, open use, and then conditionally in the employment district. Vacation rentals, and that is again not the complexes, but the rentals being no more than 2 homes, no more than 9,000 square feet total, and rented at least 2 days. We propose that they would be allowed in all zoning districts, including the steep slope high elevation and the protected ridge overlays. As Chairman Alexander said, if a neighborhood did not want to have these in their subdivision, they do have the option to use restrictive covenants to not allow those. Vacation rental complexes, and this is greater than 9,000 square feet or 3 to 10 units. What we propose is to allow those conditionally in R3, NS, CS, EMP, PS, Beaver Dam, open use, and in the steep slope high elevation overlay. But they would be conditional, and then making them so, they have to demonstrate compliance with several health and safety requirements, such as adequate ingress and egress, approved water and waste systems, and adequate emergency vehicle access. There are also some safeguards against nuisances, such as requiring buffered parking areas and outdoor lighting that's in harmony with the neighboring properties. Complexes, 3 to 10 units, would be prohibited, not allowed at all, even conditionally, in RLD, R1, R2, and the Protected Ridge Overlay. We also are proposing that the vacation rental complexes be conditional because they're very similar to planned unit developments, which require additional approval. That's very large buildings and multiple buildings, or buildings with multiple units within them, now do have to have conditional use approvals. Vacation rental complexes greater than 10 units, again, is considered a hotel. And the only residential district that allows hotels is open use. They're not allowed in NS or in either of the overlays, so that complexes that are greater than 10 units would only be permitted in commercial service, in public service, and then conditionally permitted in open use and the employment districts. And as Mr. Alexander reported, the Planning Board did hold a public hearing on this and recommends approval of these changes. Do you have any questions?
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and maybe I'm just missing something, but this is under the definition pieces, and I'm just coming at this like if I was trying to understand if my properties would be vacation rental or vacation rental complex, and this is under section 78-581. So vacation rental states means no more than 2 single-family homes with a combined total of no more than 900 gross square feet, blah, blah, blah. Vacation rental complex means 2 single-family homes. That seems like it's saying the exact same thing to me. If you were just like a random person coming, why does it say 3?
It's 1 or 2 homes if they have a combined total of more than 9,000 square feet. So it's vacation rental complex. If the combined total of those 2 homes is more than 9,000 square feet, then it becomes a complex. And that is because a very large home, you could have 3 or 4 families rent it for a week. That would increase traffic, potential noise. So those are considered complexes. If you have the smaller homes, 1 or 2, then that is with a total of less than 9,000 square feet, that would just be considered a vacation rental.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
I've got a couple. You mentioned that occupancy taxes are paid by some but not all. Who pays occupancy taxes in our state
I
and
understand that if you have 5 units or more, you have to pay occupancy tax.
And that's a state law which would trump anything we do here. Is
Yes.
that right?
It's not local.
Okay. Next up, I have, it seems like you're kind of going on the units and the square footage to differentiate the different categories. Is there any consideration made to the number of occupants in either type of unit or the number of cars? Or is it just based on the units and they can, whoever they want, however many people they get in there, they get in there?
It is based on the size and number of the units, with the assumption that the larger ones are going to have more bedrooms and therefore more occupants.
Okay, so there really, in this proposal, there isn't any consideration of the number of occupants or the number of cars.
That's correct.
And you're kind of thinking that the housing and or free market will kind of take care of that.
Well, if it's a large home or a number of units, then it would be a vacation rental complex, which does have parking requirements.
But the vacation homes don't.
That's correct.
or vacation rentals don't. Okay, that's a little hard. And then the last one I wanted to ask you about was you mentioned there were proposals that the North Carolina law trumped and you couldn't consider. What were they?
Some of the things like requiring a permit to operate a vacation rental, periodic inspections, things like that the recent Senate bill has squashed.
So basically any local control more than, any additional regulation on that is what you're saying as far as the inspection, as far as the regulation of the actual 9,000 square feet or less. Is that what you're saying?
The regulation doesn't have to do with the square footage, but just with requiring permits and permissions to do vacation rentals and inspections.
Did that wipe out a lot of other communities? Were there many other communities that regulated it to that degree before the law was passed? There
were several, and that would change that ability.
Okay.
I would just say that while there's not a parking requirement of the actual occupants there is a parking requirement for, you've got to have a space for every 2 guest rooms. So I think it's trying to get at the idea that we are planning, we understand that there will be traffic here, and we're preparing for that.
The complexes do have the number of parking spaces required.
Because I think that was a concern that I've heard from the community, is that there's just, and we'll hear from the community in just a minute, that there'd be a lot of people coming in there, but you're saying there are some parking requirements per unit.
For the larger ones, for the vacation rental complexes, which is 3 to 10 units,
okay,
or more than 9,000 square feet.
Okay. Any other questions before we hear from the public? Mr. Frue? Yes, sir, please. County Attorney Michael Frue.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, let me first try to clear up a few things, then try to answer a few questions if I could. First, on the room occupancy tax, that is a state law, but it is one of those local bills. The one we're talking about in particular for Buncombe County is particular to Buncombe County. It's similar to other room occupancy tax legislations in other parts of the state, but it does kick in, just as Debbie indicated, with 5 units or more, and they're paid in at a certain percentage, 2% I think, and administered through our finance department and paid to the local TDA, the Tourism Development Authority. So that's how that works. If a vacation rental owner had 6 units and they were renting them out, then they'd be subject to that tax. First, Chairman Alexander mentioned, and I've heard some issues about what does this new Senate Bill 683 do. I think it might help first. I mean, does it deal with rentals in general, vacation rentals in particular? Does it have to do with permitting? I think that just looking at the title of it will help steer us where we might need to go with this. That's titled the ratified bill, an act requiring counties and cities to have reasonable cause before inspecting residential buildings or structures. So the Vacation Rental Act, by comparison, it requires that those vacation rentals have written agreements. The landlord is required to comply with building and housing codes, and it provides for expedited eviction proceedings if someone stays more than a week. They can get them out the next day if they can find the magistrate and whatnot. They wouldn't have to go through the regular summary ejectment from monthly rentals or yearly rentals and have to go to court potentially for months to get someone out who stayed or hold over. So it's a different process. Here we have a question of whether or not this applies to the rentals, vacation rentals, or permitting. I think really what we're looking at, we're asking the wrong question, because what the new Senate Bill 683 really does is limit how counties or cities can conduct annual or periodic inspections. You might think of just regular housing rentals, the proverbial slumlord type housing, or anybody that has any number of housings or rental units that they feel that they might be targeted by local authorities with minimum housing codes, with random inspections, making life miserable, making it very difficult for them to keep up standard, even though they're required to maintain a certain level of standard. What this new Senate bill really does is set forth standards that the minimum housing code cannot be enforced. A county or city inspector can't simply start going there randomly. They have to have reasonable cause, which is defined by that new statute as complaints from an occupant, something they can see from the street, behavior they've seen in the past, a number of complaints. It specifically accepts from those and allows fire code inspections. Now, what we have here proposing for this board to consider are, for the vacation rental complexes, we have conditional use standards. Now, first, again, the permitting stuff we're talking about, constructions, when you're talking about really housing permitting, or Senate Bill 683, you're talking about construction, alteration, repair. You're talking about hazardous or unlawful conditions. When we're talking about conditional use standards, we're talking about use. Senate Bill 683 has nothing to do with the use of property. It just has to do with those housing standards and how often you can inspect for compliance with those standards. So in our conditional use standards, and conditional use standards are an inherent function of zoning and use for particular properties, the standards proposed are talking about ingress and egress, adequate parking that we just talked about, buffer zones that could be, the Board of Adjustment could say, you need to plant some more trees on this side to protect this community that's been established for a long period of time before you can have this complex, one or more units with more than 9,000 feet. So we're really talking about apples and oranges. And no, I can't stand here and say that I guarantee that the Senate Bill 683 can't be applied to this this ordinance, because no judge has said it doesn't apply. But we do have a very strong position. It is separate. That the Senate Bill 683 is codified in General Statute 153A 364. Zoning is in a different section of the statute, so it really is aimed at a different target. 683 is aimed at the periodic and annual inspections, and it really isn't aimed at uses. So I think we're good to go with these changes as proposed. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions, Mr. Frue?
Kind of confused me more than I was.
Okay. Well, then let's, any comments before we start a public hearing? Let's start a public hearing. We're going to have 3 minutes. There'll be a light on the table there. Because of the number of people, and I know there's a lot of interest, we've heard from a lot of you. We're interested in hearing from all of you. Why don't I recognize 2 at a time, and maybe the second speaker come and maybe stand behind there so we can get everybody and make sure we hear everybody in a prompt manner. So let's get the first 2. Mr. Butcher.
What time you're going to start?
I'll go ahead and recognize Mike, and who else? Anybody else? You on the front row. Why don't you go ahead and go first, and then we will start the public hearing at 5:20, and Mike, you'll be next. If you'll say your name and what part of the county you live.
Sure. My name is Andrew Brooks, and I own property in the South Buncombe County District, City of Arden. Full disclosure, I am a real estate broker, but I'm currently only managing my own property, which is one. I work full-time for Advanced Business Equipment as a technician. I would hope that you would lean upon the judgment of your board, the planning board. They've spent a lot of time doing this, and I think the proposal that's before you is a good one. I purchased 2 properties in '07 that were already rental properties in a subdivision that allows rental property, short-term and long-term. My goal was to live in one and rent the other one, which is across the street, which I do now. Once the zoning kicked in, it presented a lot of problems for me. One of those problems is that I do have a vacation rental, which is a furnished property. What that means is now I can only rent to people that are interested in furnished property. Some of those people want both short-term, but some of them want longer-term. I've rented to folks that were building a house. Under the current zoning, if I rent for longer than, I think it's 180 days, I go to non-conforming. I'm grandfathered. You'd think I'd be in support of the current zoning law because it limits competition for vacation rentals, but I'm not. What I have to do if somebody wants to rent for an extended period of time, I have to break that period up into contracts and then charge them state tax on top of it because I got to keep it in a vacation rental type environment versus a long-term lease because I'll lose my conformance because I can't go back to a vacation rental. Now, my goal as a property owner was to live in my larger house with my son when he graduates in 3 years, move into the other house because the one that I currently live in is right on Avery's Creek. It's beautiful. I can get twice the rent for that. I'm non-conforming now. I bought a house for a use, and I can't do anything with it. I can tell you as a realtor and I can tell you as a property owner, vacation rentals do not deteriorate property values. They bring people into this community that want to spend money, bring their toys, bring their families. They're not in competition with the hotel industry. They're bringing family units. They're good people. I have had no problems in the 5-6 years I've rented. I don't know of any. I don't know of any records that really can show that vacation rental property is a problem. Long-term rental property is a problem. Now, there's some in this room that say that's a business, vacation rental property. Well, long-term leasing, which is allowed anyway, is a business too. And you're going to have more problems from long-term leasers. They can throw a party. They can have multiple cars. Us property owners that have rental properties that furnish them have a greater concern for who's going to come in than those who are just going to rent an empty house for 6 months. So I ask that you adopt this and alleviate the confusion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. And who next after Mike? Brother Christopher, you will be next after Mike. Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Mike Buttram with the Asheville Board of Realtors. We are not against these amendments. We are for vacation rentals. And let me make that distinction at this point. I echo this gentleman in terms of what these amendments are going to do, I think, for the long term. We need clarity, for sure. And I think this goes a long way in doing that. We do have an issue, with all due respect to Mr. Frue. The North Carolina Real Estate Commission has a different viewpoint on the interpretation of this law. But I think it's a small point. I don't think that we're going to end up with anyone injured. Therefore, I don't think there's an issue at that point. And I think much of the enforcement will fall on our organization and the practitioners here in the audience to make sure that vacation rentals are good, and the ones that are not need to go. And we would be, happy to help in that area. Our appreciation goes to the planning department as well as the P&Z. They wrestled with an enormous problem for a long time, and not everyone got their way. That's for sure. But one of the things I think that, echoing Commissioner Peterson on previous issues, ordinances are not set in stone, and they can be revisited. And I think that we need to live with something long enough to be able to do that. But I would like to end with, if we had an opportunity in Buncombe County for industry to come here, that would generate 570 jobs, support additional labor income of $16.2 million, and support additional tax revenues of $5.9 million. I think we would probably want that industry in Buncombe County, assuming it wasn't strange. That industry is here. It's called vacation rentals. And this was done by the Economic Development Coalition, and with Tom Tvit's approval on this basis. And we don't think it's complete. We think it's larger. But we tried to do it on the basis of the data available and to model it on the basis of the way the coalition does that. I think we have a good industry, and whatever the differences are, we'll work out.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Buttram. Brother Christopher, who won't speak after Brother Christopher? Okay, Don.
Brother Christopher, first of all, I'm going to kind of bring URTV into this just as an example.
Let's talk about vacation rentals.
To my statement that I'm going to make.
Nope.
It revolves around this. I'm asking for my right to speak as an American
public hearing
citizen.
on vacation rentals. You can talk about our URTV at the public.
It has to do with vacation rentals. The symbol. You see, because back when it was financed by PEG, the argument was taxes are paid.
Public vacation rentals.
Are you saying, sir, that I cannot come to this meeting and say specifically
No,
what's on
no,
my
listen,
mind?
listen, we're
About
talking about,
censorship?
no, let me
Are
finish.
you saying the First Amendment rights are not
Okay,
established
Brother
here?
Christopher, we're here to talk about vacation rentals. All
That's
these
what I
people
wanna talk
here.
about.
Okay, let's get to it then. Talk
All right.
about vacation rentals. We
Then
want to
can I
hear
go
from
back
you.
since you stopped my talk for 50 seconds?
Now, you're not going to talk about ERTV until the end
No,
of the
if you
thing.
give me
so
my
we're
50
gonna...
seconds back, I'll let you restrict my
Just throw
speaking.
him out.
Go ahead, Brother Chris. Talk about
All right,
vacation
number one, a
rentals.
real estate guy over there is wrong. You don't own property. You may own the house.
Well, we're not going to have personal. Just talk about what you want
I'm
to hear.
talking about your ordinance.
Okay.
And I would like to freely talk without censorship.
Go ahead and talk then. Talk about vacation
Public
rentals
access,
because
I'll
that's
give
what
it
we're going to
any way
listen.
you want. Okay. One, the reason you can pass ordinances on what I can do with my property is because the great illusion is no one owns property. You rent property. It's called property tax, which you are renting from the government, we the people. If you watch our shows, you would know this. The guy from Texas explained this, that you have to actually have a land title to actually own possession of land, which means once you own that land title, you cannot be taxed. Oh, I mean, yeah, taxed because the actual reality is you're renting the land. This is why you can pass ordinances. Number two, our attorney here is right. No law is subject until questioned in the courts. An example, the RICO Act. I want you to know this because he just told you, well, no judge has decided to apply it anywhere else but where they said they put it. The RICO Act was applied to only go intent to crush the mafia, my family. Now, I don't think my family was a church down in southern Florida where they used the RICO Act to stop them from a stand against abortions. So just because your attorney has said they cannot apply certain rules to certain things does not apply. All a judge has to do is go, gee, I want to apply it, and it is. Like the RICO Act can be applied more than just for criminal activity. It was applied against the church. I say, shaft your legislations, give people the right to use their land as they see fit. You know what killed us? You know what killed the Vikings? They ended up taking over the world. If you read history, it was civilization. The people who came behind the discoverers, behind the people who did the work to discover the land, to set up the rules of how they wanted things run.
Okay. Thank you. Don Yelton's next. Who wants to speak after Mr. Yelton? Any other speakers? Yes, in the back. If you can go ahead and approach the front there, ma'am. Go ahead, Mr. Yelton.
Don Yelton, Jupiter, North Carolina. And also, you're controlling the number of bathrooms here. You saw the number of cars. You got to have one bath for every 4 guests. So there's a lot of control in here. And it's amazing that that control was not pointed out because although Chris gave an elaborate explanation of property rights, there's one thing you're doing with this ordinance that nobody's mentioned. You're totally destroying your open use. It's no longer open use. They don't care. You got to have a conditional permit for your open use. So you have just destroyed that part of your land use plan. Now, I know this. I know you're going to vote for what everybody's said is okay and is fine. I know that everybody's up here singing your praises. But I'm going to say this to you. One thing that gives us our freedom, the most important thing to our freedom, is our property rights. It's what gave us the ability to feed ourselves. And you've got to move for sustainability in Buncombe County. You just heard today from the hospital, over $100 million could be made if they move that hospital to Raleigh. And 80% of the people in that hospital are not paying for their services. They need more services. And we know in our schools, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 50% of our schools are reduced or free lunches. You all don't experience any of this, but Buncombe County is a broke county. And if somebody has to have a rental unit to survive and live here, you're beginning to destroy that, even in the open use area. And frankly, there's nothing wrong with having rules about disturbing your neighbors. And you got to have the proper septic tank or you couldn't build these units. You've already got the rules and regulations. So I think you need to look at this whole approach. I would beg you to look at it. You probably won't. And simply say that you're going to redo this whole thing in terms of not harming the community itself. You've already said that if you have a community can say, we're not going to have any of these. But if the community does it, then the people have input locally. And here this is going to occur on a county-wide basis. With one fell swoop, you destroy your open use concept. You hurt people that may have to do that to make a living. And it's interesting that I see that the real estate people had to do this to keep from going bankrupt. What are you doing to that? What are you doing to that? I think it's all a step to increase the tax rate for vacation rentals so you can put more money in your pocket. That's where it's headed. Thank you.
Okay. You're next. Who wants to speak after this lady that's approaching the podium? Any other speakers tonight? Okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Liz Wiederhold. I'm a realtor and I'm also a vacation rental property owner. I live on the very edge of Buncombe County, almost in Madison County, and live on a property with several acres and have 2 vacation rentals on that property. So I come at this from 2 different perspectives. The first one is that I appreciate that you're looking at this at all. I think the issue of vacation rentals in our residential neighborhoods, one home being a vacation rental, was probably somewhat of an accidental elimination, and I'm glad that this is being reconsidered. From the other perspective, that of being a property owner, I have a concern with the language and what I think is probably an unintended consequence of the way that this was drafted. I know that the staff worked very hard on it and looked at ordinances in other areas, but I'm not sure that those were as rural and as unique as Buncombe County is. What we have is a definition for the vacation rental complex essentially is worded to say that if more than 2, so 3 or more properties are adjacent and held in common ownership, they become a complex. So in my situation, I live on this property, I have 2 vacation rentals. If I want to turn my own home into a vacation rental, or if I want to build another one on my acreage, I would have to get a conditional use permit, and I am in the open use district. On the other hand, I could build a hotel, I could have a multifamily duplex, triplex, quadruplex, or 5-plex on my property as a permitted use without a conditional use permit. I could have a mobile home park, I could have a manufacturing plant, but I cannot have a 3rd vacation rental in the open use district adjacent to and held in common ownership with the other one. And I don't think that was intended, but it's a wording issue that I think has to be dealt with. The way that the ordinance is written on the permitted use table, vacation rental complexes are not permitted in R1, R2, and some of the higher risk neighborhoods. My request to you would be that you change the conditional use to permitted use in those districts where it's currently drafted to be conditional for 2 reasons. One is because I don't think this was intended to work the way that it has worked. I think it was geared at more at typical neighborhoods, not at our rural Buncombe County type situation. And the other is that I have to disagree respectfully with Mr. Frue as well, that I do think Senate Bill 683, now a law, specifically says that no municipality shall require a property owner to obtain a permit or permission to rent their property. And I would say that my having to get a conditional use permit is doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wiederhold. Let's see. We recognize who's
Chip Craig.
Chip Craig, and who's after Mr. Craig? Was there someone behind the podium? They're gesturing over there. Okay, Mr. Craig. Who wants to speak after Mr. Craig? Mr. Yelp. Mr. Yelp. Nope.
Rice.
Mr. Rice. Mr. Yelp. No. Chip Craig, then Jerry Rice.
I'm Chip Craig, and I reside in Black Mountain. Thank you all for looking at this again, and thank you, staff and planning board for all the time they've spent on this. One of the most important things for y'all to remember is that until December of 2009, vacation rentals were allowed in Buncombe County, and all heck didn't break loose during that period. You hardly ever heard of vacation rentals being in any kind of issues. The average vacation home is only rented for about 6 years, and then it reverts back to single-family residence. That's an important number because the current zoning ordinance restricts, only grandfathers folks. So over time, like this gentleman was talking about, there are going to be less and less vacation rentals in the county. People don't hold vacation rentals as investment properties. And I'm owner of Graybeard Realty. We manage 160 vacation rentals in the county. They hold these houses because they plan to retire. They hold these houses for a couple years where they go off on business. They do vacation rentals for that reason. And we're seeing a lot of folks that can't sell their houses that are doing vacation rentals until the market improves. Vacation rentals have a tremendous impact on the economy. A national study said 8% of all tourism is tied to vacation rentals. Graybeard Realty, which represents a small fraction of the vacation homes, paid over $200,000 in sales and use tax in 2010. Restrictions on vacation rentals also have a negative impact on real estate sales, and we all know what the real estate market is now. I'm going to skip some of my other prepared remarks because they've already been addressed. Just to clarify, 4%, the occupancy tax is 4%. All people that manage or own more than 5 have to pay that. All vacation rentals have to pay the North Carolina sales tax. For David, your question about occupancy and what if there are 20 people in a house. If you go more than 16, all heck breaks loose and you have to meet certain fire codes, sprinklers, all kinds of things. We don't want to go there. It also realized that in today's market, it's the audience is that rents these things are very savvy, and they're on the internet. There's TripAdvisor, there's ratings of these houses. You just can't. I wouldn't want to. I want to have happy people, but you can't cram a bunch of people on a regular basis and get away with it. 54% of the students in Buncombe County are on free and reduced lunch. I'll throw that in. I'm supportive of this revised ordinance, and thank y'all for re-looking at it.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Mr. Rice, and who will speak after Mr. Rice? Any other public comments today? Okay, Mr. Rice.
Thank you, Jerry Rice from Candler.
A.K. Mr. Yelton, sorry.
That's all right. He's a pretty good guy. Yins are sometimes. My comment is, if you're so in love with tourism development, leave the market up to the people, and you'll find out that tourism will work better. When you start taxing people to death, it's going to bite you in the rear later. My point is that property tax in Buncombe County is fixing to be increased again at some point in time. It's already increased because you didn't reevaluate. But my point about this tax that we're talking about now, I'm concerned that yins are probably fighting everything you can to get the tax you can find, because you know what's coming in 2012 and on further on property reevaluation. So my concern is, why don't we just do away with this tax here and forget it and let the people live on their own property? I work for a lot of people that has these rental properties, and like the gentleman said, they're nice people that comes in and rents for a few days and goes back, and they come into Asheville, and what's the city of Asheville going to do? Are they going to start charging them tax because they're out in the county, and so they come into Asheville? They're going to charge them tax for coming into Asheville? I mean, you got to look at the big picture here. We're getting taxes and all, but what's the greater good of it? I think we need to leave people alone and let them enjoy their lifestyle in their own house and their property.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Are there any other comments tonight? Mr. Seckler? Anybody want to speak after?
Is this just on public hearing?
This is just on vacation rentals. We'll have another session at the end of our meeting to talk about anything else. Go ahead, Joe.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good to see you. My name is Joe Seckler. I'm a member of the County Planning Board and the lone dissenting vote on this proposal. I couldn't in clear conscience not come before you today to speak in behalf of the many county residents who don't know what may be coming to their neighborhoods. contrary to what's been said, in my opinion, the proposal hasn't been developed totally in the sunlight. A small group of vacation rental interests worked it through the planning staff to the planning board without citizens' knowledge. Only in the final phases did a handful of savvy residents get wind of the effort and express their displeasure to the planning board and the staff. I suspect you have confronted some of this displeasure. Further, this summer there was a closed meeting, as been mentioned previously, at the chamber with representatives from the planning staff and the vacation rental, B&B, and hotel industries working the matter. Not a single independent resident was invited to participate. This proposal allows businesses to penetrate and violate the integrity of homogeneous neighborhoods and to further depreciate property values, the last thing we all need now. Not one representative of any major real estate firm came to support this initiative. Even the Board of Realtors representative who spoke tonight admitted to a huge split among realtors. Why? They and developers sitting on 5 to 7 years' worth of residential for sale properties know this proposal will further stagnate their sales. I know the owners of for sale properties, representing 25% of the lots in my neighborhood, would be most unhappy should this proposal pass. Simply put, this vast majority of buyers looking for residential properties do not want to live next to vacation rental or the potential thereof and have all the baggage that comes with it. Would you buy a lot for your new home next to a house with numerous out-of-state cars, lights all hours of the night, and loud activities? More particularly, would you want such a business to pop up next to your current home? As you know, many of the main purposes of the zoning code is to protect property values and maintain consistency in use. Many residents, some of whom have invested life savings, have only the zoning code to protect their neighborhoods. This proposal flies in the face of the existing code. To allow vacation rental businesses to come in heretofore protected neighborhoods would be tragic. Further, the county does not have the wherewithal to enforce such a code. Residents would be the enforcers, pitting one neighbor against another. This is not right. Personally, I could see allowing something like two-week periods a year for vacation rental, but not what is currently proposed. Please vote no.
Thank you, Jim. Any other public comment on the vacation rental proposal before us? All right, then I'll declare the public hearing closed at 5:45. Comments, discussion.
I would like for Mr. Alexander or Ms. Trumpy or John Creighton to describe a typical person who, or family or group that rents in vacation rental and the typical home they rent, please. No pressure there, John.
Yeah, it's, I think, in talking, I guess, to the real estate, and there's probably obviously people in here that's got more knowledge of that than I do, but in talking with them, it's a people that want to come into a rural setting. I mean, it's a family. We're not the beach. We're not a spring break destination type thing. But it's when I talk to people that have these, it's I rent them for a weekend. I think we learned at the chamber where, you know, it's basically 2 nights. If you can get more than 3 or 2 nights, it's a bonus after that. It's usually a family setting where, you know, you bring in, obviously if it bases on the size of the house, and that's why we tried to limit that square footage where you wouldn't have like houses that you see at the beach, where you'd have multi-bedrooms and multi-bathrooms to go along with it. So that's why we put that 9,000 limit, either being combined or single. But it's, like I say, we're not a spring break destination.
So generally, it's a family who's looking for a vacation in a rural setting.
Exactly. Wants to come to the Biltmore House, maybe wants to visit downtown Asheville, you know, wants to look at the amenities that we have here in Asheville or around Asheville.
Thank you.
Well, John, while you're up, I've got a question, and that was raised by Mr. Sackler. Who does enforce this? if it's not in compliance? How does that work? Is it complaint driven? Is it, or how's
It just depends. I mean, what the enforcement or what the allegations are as far as a violation. I mean, obviously, when you talk to Terry Gentry, who's the fire marshal, I mean, he's had some complaints about, okay, the lights didn't work, or, you know, certain aspects as far as the electrical system in the house. He has made several inspections, says he makes several every year. If there's a noise violation, obviously the sheriff would come in and address that. But I think for the most part, I think the realtors do a good job as far as when you look at that industry out there. If I'm an individual and I'm out there just renting my house on my own, like this gentleman here, you can still, like I said, like it was mentioned, TripAdvisor and there's other things on the internet, word gets out pretty easily that, okay, this is a good spot or a bad spot. I had a good, enjoyable time here, or I didn't.
But it is complaint. Someone has to
It is.
complain, and
Exactly.
it would probably be a neighbor.
And that's
or,
why when we talked with the planning board about getting into a permit process, you get into the rental, and we just can't do that.
And as Commissioner Bates said, I guess it would be a dissatisfied customer would also be a source, I suppose.
And like I say, word gets out on that, I think, relatively easily.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Well, I wanted to make amendment. I actually am moved by, I think that staff's done a great job, and I'm sorry it's been such a journey for everybody. And I know it took a lot of twists and turns, which were interesting, because at the end of the day, this is a land use decision, not an economic development decision. But I do believe that the gentlewoman made a great point about the open use, and I would make the amendment to make, instead of a conditional use for vacation rentals in open use only, that it be a permitted use, because it kind of defies logic that all these other very, very intense uses are permitted in a vacation rental complex as we define it is not. So I would make that amendment. I would move that amendment.
You're talking about complexes?
Just in open use.
Could I explain who's in there? When we talk about hotels, obviously it's going to be very hard to have a hotel outside of areas where you don't have utilities. That's why that we basically started out with zoning in the MSD boundaries. To do a complex, all I basically need is a septic tank for each unit. I agree with the lady that spoke that there are rural parts of Buncombe County, but when you go outside that MSD district, there's a lot of people that live close together. I mean, take Irwin Hills, for example. You know, you get over in Avery's Creek, which is outside the district, some parts of it. You can get into areas that obviously it's going to impact a neighborhood, and when you talk about 6 or 8 of these together, it has an impact. And it's not the same thing as a hotel. I mean, it's not. So that's why we went in that direction.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that.
Sure.
That logic. I do. I just think I just want to make that amendment.
Okay, well, why don't we do this? Let's do, Commissioner Jones, it's all right, let's do a motion on the overall.
You've got something.
I'm sorry, Ms. Trump, you've got go ahead.
I did want to jump in on that same topic. Within the open use, more than 5 units is already a conditional use. So we wouldn't want to see, 10 or 12 vacation rental complexes being permitted when more than 5 residential units is conditional.
Yeah, and that's the problem for me, to kind of split the middle. So, we allow up to 5 for this, but we don't. So, I don't know if we want to, maybe it's something we revisit and we try to drill down for open use, the definition of vacation rental complex. But, so that's the one side, but the other side is we do allow up to 6 units in open use with permitted, right?
Up to 5. Without a
less
conditional
than 6,
use
excuse
permit.
me, yeah. So, but now we're for vacation rentals, we're limiting that to just more than two. And if they're big ones, they can't even, so.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta draw the line someplace. I totally get that. There's just something about hearing, going through this list of things that are allowed in the open use and knowing who the vacation rental is, what the property is in general, and restricting that more than we're restricting animal hospitals. But it goes counter to my logic. But and it can. I mean, I'm fine with it going down 1-4. It's not going to hurt my feelings at all. I just feel compelled that my logic tells me to make the amendment.
Okay. Why don't we procedurally, is there a motion to adopt the full ordinance? Let's entertain that, and then we'll have discussion on that, then we'll vote on Commissioner Jones's amendment.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I think that with procedurally by our rules with Commissioner Jones' motion, that is the only motion on the table procedurally, and any other motion is out of line until such time as you move forward with that motion.
Okay, so.
Did you get a second?
Okay, is there a second on the amendment, proposed amendment? Okay, then it dies for lack of second.
Yes, sir.
Now, is there a motion on the overall motion?
Move to adopt.
Proposal. Commissioner Peterson has made a motion. Is there a second on the proposed amendment?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Stanley. Is there any discussion on the ordinance as proposed?
Well, I'm gonna vote because I think the planning group has done exactly what we asked them to do, and I understand what Holly's saying, and I would like for them to go back and relook at the that particular item at some point in time.
I think she has a great claim for a variance. That if she just wants to do one, she can come to them with that.
Yeah, I think the planning group needs to
we
tell us
always do
how
that.
that
We always
needs to
go
be
back
done.
and tweet them.
Yeah.
And I think she has a good tweet.
There you go. I think that's a compliment.
Well, my concern. My concern is I don't want anything added. We've worked real hard on steep slopes, protected ridge. I got a little heartburn about that, but they'd have to comply with all other portions of that law. So it's not really changing that, but I've got a little heartburn about that. But I think overall we need to get on and decide what we're going to do here. Is there any other discussion on the proposal that has been moved for approval by Commissioner Peterson, second by Commissioner Vice Chair Stanley? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Then we have adopted the ordinance, and I would thank everybody for the information, the feedback. I think it's been something that's really had a lot of community input. Okay.
Good job.
Next up, we have, we do not have a county manager's report, I think, Dr. Green, unless something has changed in the last hour or so. So now we're on to resolution about the acceptance of applications and approval of housing projects for the Affordable Housing Services Program. And we have Donna Cottrell here.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the resolution that I bring before you tonight is concerning the 2012 Affordable Housing Trust funding. Planning staff advertised in July, and we accepted applications through mid-August. We had 4 organizations submit 5 projects. So I've asked them if they would come and introduce themselves and give a brief summary of their projects. And we'll begin with the Asheville Housing Authority and Anthony Goodson and Michelle Meese.
Mr. Goodson, Ms. Meese, thank you for coming.
How are you doing today? Thank you for letting us be here. So we've asked for down payment assistance for the Housing Authority of the City of Asheville. You approved us in 2009 to have down payment assistance, and I think we were good stewards with that money. We had 3 homeowner closings under that. Since that time, Mrs. Meese had produced almost 21 homeowners during this hard economical time of low-income individuals. And we want to continue that fashion. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Meese. She's the brains behind the project, and she can give you more details of the homeownership program that she operates.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm the coordinator of our Housing Choice Voucher Homeownership Program at the Housing Authority. And through this program, families can use the voucher, which is traditionally used for rental assistance, and apply that subsidy towards a mortgage. So they're able to affordably buy a home and make their mortgage payment. So having the down payment assistance increases the opportunity for these families to close the gap and increase opportunities to find affordable housing in Buncombe County. Since the past 2 years, we've had, as Anthony mentioned, 21 homeowners close through the voucher program, and with the addition of the down payment assistance, I think we could see additional families have that opportunity. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
That's great.
That's good.
Okay.
Any questions?
How much money did you have last year?
It was in 2009, it was
16.
16.
And we helped 3 families with that award.
And this is proposed to be 25,
25.
Right? Okay.
And
I'm sorry. I do want to mention that she already has 3 more people closing in October, just for this month of October. So I think she'll close out with the fiscal
Right.
year about 12 families in addition.
Right, three planned for October. Closing's already scheduled, and I have 10 other applicants who are actually already pre-qualified with lenders, and of course eligible through our program, through the voucher program also.
Good news. Thank you. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll have Eblin Charities.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioners, for having me here today. I'm Philippe Ross. I'm the Deputy Director of Eblin Charities. I want to thank everyone, the Commissioners and the Planning Department, especially Donna Cottrell and Cynthia Barklow for their consistent help with our agency. Our application was for for rental assistance security deposits for individuals who are at risk of homelessness, specifically those who live in housing that has been considered condemnable by Buncombe County, as well as for other residents at risk of homelessness. We run other programs that are very similar. What happens is that we ask individuals come down to Eblin, and they then have access to all of our programs so that we try to assist them with our emergency assistance or our CIP. Last year, Eblin provided approximately $5 million worth of services in both in-kind and regular services, which included both $3.1 million in utilities and housing assistance. What we also do is that if an individual comes to Eblin and it is decided that individual has assistance maybe with foreclosure or another issue, we do a referral to another agency. We consider ourselves a strong community network, and we've actually provided assistance for both Mountain Housing Opportunities and the Housing Authority. When individuals do get in the housing with a security deposit, we inspect the home, we make sure the individual can maintain the home and the home is a fair market rent. We also provide assistance with a housing plan and direction to other resources within the community. Last year we received a similar funding through the Buncombe County. We served over 85% greater than the number we were expected to serve, with matching dollars 1-to-1 through Eblin dollars. So for every dollar spent by the county, it was actually matched $1 for those individuals, and that doesn't even count other individuals that were either resourced to another agency or never entered into the program. We've also called up all of these individuals after 3 months and 6 months, and we find that they have a retention rate of over 80%. So it's a successful program of getting individuals in. And what we find is during this very, very difficult time, we are seeing a growing number of individuals who are obviously at risk of homelessness. We have great respect for those who are dealing with the chronic homeless issue. Our work is more dealing with homeless prevention and to ensure those who are at risk of homelessness or recently homeless, that we get them in as quickly as possible. We try to do it within 24 to 48 hours as quickly as possible, and we also inspect to make sure everything is safe. I think it's a successful program, dovetail beautifully with our emergency assistance and our CIP. So once they are in the home, there is a safety net, and it wouldn't be possible except for the support of all of you and of all our community members and all the communities through our fundraising, especially through the boosters, pumpkins, and everything else we do in this community. So cannot thank you enough. If there's any questions at all about this or any other program, I'll be glad to answer it.
Any questions, Mr. Ross?
You're a good spokesman for Eblin.
It's a great organization sponsored by a great community.
Good job.
And next we have Mountain Housing.
Thank you, Chairman Gannon, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. With your support, Mountain Housing Opportunities now helps over 600 Buncombe County households each year to have safe, attractive, affordable homes. Approximately 150 of those are in emergency home repair that you'll hear more about. We build an average of over 60 new homes each year in community rental investments and self-help home ownership. And with us this evening, we have Lloyd Frue, who has managed our home repair and rehab programs for over 14 years, and Cindy Weeks, who's our manager of community rental investments and has been with us for our entire history of 23 years.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Gant, Commissioners. I'm the first one that gets to say good evening. I'm Lloyd Frue. I'm the Repair Rehab Manager with Mountain Housing Opportunities. 23 years ago, Mountain Housing Opportunities began serving the Buncombe community with the Emergency Home Repair Program. The design of this program was to save lives and preserve homes owned by low-income elderly or disabled homeowners and homeowner families with children. The focus of this program is to repair homes that are an imminent threat to life, health, and safety of the homeowner and the community. As of September 30th of this year, the emergency home repair and rehab programs have completed a total of 3,127 emergency home repairs and home rehabilitations in Buncombe County since our inception. We also provide handicap accessibility for homeowners with disabilities. Mountain Housing Opportunities has built over 230 wheelchair ramps since 1995. The importance of this program to the low-income homeowner and the community becomes evident as you look at the type of repairs that we make. Failed septic systems, broken sewer lines, which can harm not just the homeowner, but it's a community issue. Faulty electric, again, a danger to the homeowner and the community for fires. Leaking roofs, broken water heaters, hazardous porches and floors, broken heating systems. We have replaced or repaired, since our inception, 403 furnaces in Buncombe County. This program not only saves lives and homes, but provides jobs for our local contractors and supply houses of the various trades. On behalf of our low-income neighbors who are trying to stay safely in their homes, MHO thanks you for your consideration in this venture.
Thank you, Ms. Free. Ms. Weeks?
And the third's a charm. I'm Cindy Weeks. Good evening, Chairman Gant and the Buncombe County Commissioners, Board of Commissioners. I'm happy to be here tonight to speak to you for a moment about the Glen Rock Hotel. As you know, we've been working on a plan to redevelop this for about 5 years. We recently completed the Glen Rock Depot next door, which is a 90,000 square foot building with 60 affordable apartments and 10,000 square feet of commercial space that is all leased up, commercial, residential, everything. That was an investment of almost $1 million by the county in federal home funds and housing services funds. All of that property is tax-paying property, so you've got it on your tax rolls. You're collecting money from us every year on that. And, you know, they talk about the triple bottom line, so you make the investment, we pay back the loan, and you get the commercial and residential development. Tonight we're here to happily receive, hopefully, a recommendation for $200,000 for the residences at the Glen Rock Hotel. As you know, a few years ago, before the market crashed, we were planning to do commercial, office, and retail in that building. Because of the overwhelming response for residences at the Glen Rock Depot, which was over 1,000 phone calls and over 500 applications for 60 apartments, we decided to recast the hotel as 22 residences upstairs, all affordable to 60% of median and below. The rents will range from $450 to about $600 a month. This will be a $2 million construction project, about 150 construction jobs during the course of next year. And at the end, we're going to have, on the first floor, about 6,000 square feet of commercial space that we're kind of targeting, not reserving, but targeting for some type of a food store. As you know, during urban renewal, that neighborhood was, all the local food stores that were there were taken away. And there are a number of grants available now through the federal FDA and other organizations Blue Cross Blue Shield to take care of what they term a food desert, and that's been determined as a food desert. So hopefully by renovating the hotel for residences and having some type of grocery store downstairs, we'll kind of complete our work in the neighborhood. So thank you for your support tonight, and do you have any questions?
Any questions, Ms. Week?
Brilliant.
Mr. Dedman?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And last is Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah, not very good food,
Didn't say anything about that.
no. It is down there,
Mr. Chairman and members of commissioners here, I want to thank you for this opportunity to be with you for a few minutes. I also want to express an appreciation for colleagues here tonight and the great work that they're doing with the Housing Authority, Eblin, and certainly Mountain Housing Opportunities. This county is very fortunate to have these groups of people at work here on our affordable housing issues. And so I want to congratulate them tonight on great work that they have done and are doing. I'm also proud to let you know, in case you don't, that this county was the first county in the state of North Carolina to form a Habitat for Humanity. I think that says a lot about our county. I think it says as much about our housing need as it does the great people who live in this county. So I congratulate this county. There are now 88 habitats in the state of North Carolina, and this county was the first. We are pleased to have our proposal before you tonight for the support of 4 new houses that we will be building in the Woodfin area. This property is already purchased. We have it under, it's not under contract, it's in our allotment of buildings that are coming up. It is bordered by Elkwood Avenue on the east and by Pelser Street on the west. So we are pleased to be considered for funding there. There's a few things that I want to mention about this. The families that will move into these 4 houses there are all families working in this community. They are making less than 70% of median income. And once they move into these new houses, they will be having house payments between $475 and $575 a month, including taxes and insurance. So this is really workforce affordable housing in our community. Just a couple of statistics that I'd like to give you. I asked Ed, who is with me tonight, our finance director, and Kit, who is our development director, Kit Raines. I asked for a few statistics on just what have we done numerically a little bit in the last 5 years. And I thought it was interesting to know that Habitat homeowners in only the last 5 years, now we've been here doing business for 28 years, but in the last 5 years have provided $1.2 million in property taxes from the homes in which they live. I think the other thing that's really important in this economy is that in the last 5 years, we have provided $11.5 million to local vendors and suppliers and subcontractors for work that have been done on Habitat houses here in this county. $11.5 million. And I think the other thing, for those of you who are familiar with our restore operation, we've also kept about 5,500 tons out of the landfill, the county landfill. And we've turned that back into 2x4s, into shingles, into sheetrock for our Habitat houses. So our proposal here tonight is a proposal that will keep regenerating and regenerating and regenerating capital into the work that we do. The money you give tonight will be paid back by our homeowners to be reinvested into affordable housing in this community. So for your support in the past and for your support tonight, we would be grateful. We thank you for it. And again, I want to also thank the staff here for the great work they did in guiding us through this process. They made something that could be quasi-painful very painless. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
Good work.
And it is certainly my pleasure to work with all of these organizations. But having said that, I would like to present to you the staff recommendations for funding for this year's Housing Trust, and that would be emergency repair for Mountain Housing Opportunities, $75,000. Single-family home construction, Habitat for Humanity, $105,000. The residents at Glen Rock, Mountain Housing Opportunities, for $200,000. Housing Stability Services and Emergency Relocation Program with Evelyn Charities at $55,000, and down payment assistance with the Housing Authority for $25,000. I would like to add one thing is the total funding here is $460,000, and that's above our budgeted amount, and that's because of program income that came in from successful programs that have been paid back.
Move approval of this great
Second.
list of projects.
Motion by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Bailey. Is there any discussion? I would just note that this is in every case it's less than what they asked for because we didn't have enough to give. The need was a lot more than what we could do, but we did reduce it accordingly. Any other discussion or comments?
Well, I just say with a grateful heart to Donna Cottrell and the other folks who worked on this, and these people who came with the nonprofits tonight for their great, great reports. It makes you very proud to be a resident of Buncombe County.
Well done, thank you.
It sure does. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Commissioner Jones' motion carries 5-0. Next, we're going to hear, and thank you again. Thank you all for coming. Thanks, frontline work you do every single day.
That's true. That's worth the trip right there.
Thank you. Okay, Western Highlands Network Report. We have Donna Clerk, Finance Director. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. In compliance with the North Carolina General Statute, I am presenting the FY 2011 fourth quarter fiscal monitoring report for Western Highlands Area Authority. And while these June statements are not yet audited, the audit is proceeding on schedule, and the results are scheduled to be presented to the Authority Board at their November meeting. The FY11 revenues exceeded expenditures by $1,200,670, and that total consists of $116,679 for the LME administration, $129,229 of unspent maintenance of effort funds, and then $954,760 were surplus service dollars, and they were added to fund balance as is required with their contract with the Department of Health and Human Services. At June 30th, total fund balance was $311,836. Excuse me. And this financial report shows that there was less service spending in adult development disabilities and child development disabilities as compared to the last year, but that doesn't equate to less services being provided. It reflects that providers were directly billing Medicaid for target case management, and so those funds no longer flowed through the LME. The final state allocations for FY12 did cut service dollars by $2,385,000 to almost $2.4 million. And the division required Western Highlands to offset that budget cut by using an additional $1,053,000 into the amount that they had already allocated to cover those cuts for services. So this will bring their unrestricted fund balance as a percentage of the expenditures down to 10.89%, or $5,058,751. Any questions?
Okay.
So does that change in cash balance go to, I mean, I hear what you just said about what was required after with the new, but that 1.2 savings goes to the reserves?
It goes to the reserves, but it will be spent on additional service.
It's required to be spent on services.
So it doesn't go on, does that really go to reserves? It goes to a line item for additional services?
Restricted reserves to make up the difference where the state made cuts in direct service dollars.
At June 30th, it will be in fund balance, but they will allocate that in FY12.
The state cut funding?
Smart at it.
So you kind of anticipated my question about the kind of the big gap from budget to year-to-date actual, and I feel better about, because I was worried that like all those folks were not getting services. So in terms of this year's budget, is it more in line with the actual year-to-date from last year going forward, the 11-12, or?
It is more in line this year because you won't see reflected those dollars that made the transition last year to direct bill of Medicaid. So it is more in line this year.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Let's see, is there a motion to approve the report?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Peterson, second by Vice Chair Stanley. Is there any other discussion of the Western Highlands Network report by Ms. Clark? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We adopt the report 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, I'm sorry, I've got one other quick little
Yes, ma'am.
question. Are we concerned at all about the accounts receivables at the bottom?
Again, that's reflective of the change in how billing occurred. So no, that's not an issue we're concerned about.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
It's a good question.
Thank you. Next, we'll have board appointments. The Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee, we have 5 vacancies. Any nominations?
I'll nominate Donald Diebert, Mary Adamy, and Marjorie Latta. All are current members of that advisory committee.
All right. They have been so nominated. Any other nominations? All those in favor of appointing those individuals, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. They are appointed. Mountain Area Workforce Development Board, 3 private sector vacancies.
Chair nominate Peter Cook and Pat Boyd.
Any other nominations? All those in favor of Mr. Cook and Mr. Boyd, say aye. Miss Boyd. I think it's Miss Boyd.
Maybe that's the lady.
Yep. All in favor, 5. Anybody opposed? Then Miss Boyd and Mr. Cook are appointed. Civic Center Commission, we have 1 vacancy.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Wes Wright.
Mr. Wright's been nominated. Any other nominations? All those in favor of appointing Mr. Wright, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Mr. Wright is appointed. The next regular board meeting of this commission will be October 18, 2011, beginning at 4:30. And commissioner meetings can be seen on BC Charter Cable Channel 2, AT&T UVerse Channel 99, live on buncombecounty.org during the meetings, or online anytime at buncombecounty.org. Mr. Frue, will we have a closed session tonight?
No, sir.
All righty, so we will go to public comment. This is comment only, and questions will be answered after the meeting. Any public comment tonight? Yes, sir. In the back.
Question. I do not live in Buncombe County. Am I allowed to have voice?
Oh, yes, sir. You may speak. Go ahead.
Yes, okay.
And if you give your name and where you are from.
Yeah, I'm Don Miller. I live in Old Fort. I work at Mission Hospital. I'd like to talk about the protests that are going on, the Wall Street protests across our country, and it's happening in Asheville, as I understand it. And I looked at it a little bit, and I see that the folks are being pushed around and being moved several times a day. And I was wondering if, well, I'd like to just talk general about it first, and that is, and while I can't speak for everybody, perhaps I can put a little bit of light on what's going on as I see it. And I think that there's a general dissatisfaction that that is rooted in feelings of betrayal. And I don't think that it's the protesters against you, and it's not the protesters against Wall Street. I think that it's a problem that we all face of being greedy. And I'm thinking myself, everybody. In this past financial debacle, some of us bought houses that were too big. People were flipping houses, writing loans that shouldn't have been done. So let me ask you a question. Do you know what QE1 is and QE2? Are you familiar with those terms?
Go ahead and make your comment. Well,
my
it's
comment,
not really a
my
dialogue.
comment is,
Go ahead, sir.
well, I do have 5 minutes, right?
3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. But what's done is done, and let's move on. And what I would like to do is, I think these protesters are ultimately trying to raise consciousness. And the simple statement is that there's enough for everybody. And I would like the city and the county to embrace this protest and allow these people to have a public forum where they don't be moved around all day long. Someplace that's visible to help raise public awareness. And if you all have any suggestions of where this might be or any comments, I would welcome them.
We do not have anything to do with the crowd control. It's within the city of Asheville, so it would really be a city of Asheville issue.
I see.
And we don't really control that. That's a separate jurisdiction, so we really don't have any say about it.
Okay.
But thank you for your comments. And I think we could pass that along to the city manager, and we'll do so.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Any other public comment? And if we could just make a note to do that. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Landis?
Wow, I started already and I didn't even start to speak. It's a good thing I'm going to ask for 8 people to raise their hands so I can have 10 minutes. You want to count my hands for my 10 minutes so we can stop the clock? It's already 2:40.
Have 8? Don't see 8, I'm sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
7.
Okay, is that
These
8?
folks, they're giving up their right to
Okay.
speak now when they do
Now
that.
give up your right to speak. That's fine. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
I am Reverend Lisa Landis, and I am a walking man for the last patrol. I walked 900 miles for the patch on my hat, and I would do it again tomorrow if it means that I am going to do what is good for my children who are willing to die fighting for my rights and freedom, because I'm not willing to give up my constitutional rights, as I have been forced to in this room. I'm also, people ask me, well, what kind of a pastor am I? And I'm a mystic, and I am a starseed, and I understand, and I stood before you back on January the 18th, and I told you that this was going to happen, that the people were going to stand up, and they were going to come before you, and they were going to say, we're tired of what is going on. Speaking of our Native Americans, when I was listening to the laws and the rules and the permits and da-da-da-da-da, and it's like, we took this land from the Native Americans. And here we are telling them what we're allowed to do or what they're allowed to do and what we're allowed to do. And it's like, wait a minute. Why don't we, give the land back to the Native Americans? Because isn't that kind of like Hitler did, come in and genocide? And a lot of it was all because of religion, organized religion that is condemning to other people instead of honoring the differences that we bring, a difference that we bring into a collective. We are occupying Asheville, and in a little bit I'm going to read about a declaration of the occupation of Asheville. But a lot of it is because of the corporate greed. We have the corporate greed instead of what the human needs. And then we had a little bit about the health care. And it's like, why do we need health care? If we did not have the genetically modified food that caused the body to degrade, if we didn't have the disease in society, if we just ate better foods, we wouldn't have near the problems that we have that are causing people to go to the hospitals in order to get the drugs from the pharmaceutical companies in order to heal themselves. When it's been proven that the pharmaceutical drugs have a whole lot of nasty side effects that continue to break down the bodies. A lot of side effects that could be healed just by having the correct food and the water, the non-polluted water in our bodies. As of today, there are 146 U.S. cities and 28 foreign cities in other countries that have joined Occupy today. So if the people would like to find more information, check out occupyasheville.org for local happenings, and also occupytogether.org for international happenings. We talk about the economy, and it's like, do we really want to create growth? Do we want to create jobs? Because when you consider the medical cannabis industry, which has been proven that will create at least $250 million in revenues in the first year, we have to wonder why we're not doing that. And that is not even counting the industrial hemp. We in the United States have to buy our industrial hemp from Canada, even though in Asheville we have the only 2 hemp houses in the United States. I question you. If you are the leaders, then who are you leading? Who are you speaking for? Are you speaking for all people, or is it only a select amount? We have people who have concerns, who stand up here and address you, and it doesn't matter because you're going to pass whatever you want to pass when you want to pass it. It seems like the people don't have a voice, which is one of the concerns that we, the people, have. We like our public access forum. We want our public access forum. We don't want to come in here and have to spend, our whole night just to get 3 minutes. I mean, it would be great if, we could have Jerry come and do a summary of what you guys are up to, even though we do have to be here in order for us to place our vote. In order for us to have a say, it might not count as anything, but at least. Now, when we're talking about, the industrial hemp, we're also talking about clothing, fuel, energy, paper, concrete, many other things. And then we have to go back to the alcohol prohibition. What did the alcohol prohibition, what's it worth? Who profited off of the alcohol prohibition? And then we have to look at the alcoholism, the disease and decay in society. Why, if alcoholism is a documented disease, why do we put people who are afflicted in jails and not in treatment programs? Are we putting people in jails in privatized jails, and it's just for the profit in the criminal justice system? And it's like, talking about the criminal justice system, did you know that you can get better drugs in jails? And I don't know how much I'm going to say about the employed law enforcement in this town that is affiliated with the drugs, the prostitution, and the murder. And it's how many of you know what is going on and continue to ignore that there is a problem. Okay? There's a whole lot of stuff that we've got to get changed. And this is all part of prophecy. If you listen to the Native Americans will tell you that this is part of prophecy. Look under Hopi prophecy, and you will see where they're pointing to a split. That we as a society, as a collective society, have a chance in order to continue. Or, there again, we can look at the Christian Bible and Revelation. Well, we're revealing a whole lot of stuff. We're revealing a whole lot of corruption. And the thing is, we ourselves have to start standing up and looking at ourselves, because a lot of that dis-ease comes from within. So I'm hoping that people actually want to step up and get clean. And I'm really glad that you guys got another award, even though I still haven't heard, about the, hey, URTV was pretty darn good. Okay, Declaration of the Occupation of Asheville. And this is what we have so far. It is not a finalized copy. We have taken it pretty much in solidarity with New York. As we gather together in solidarity to express a feeling of mass injustice, we must not lose sight of what has brought us together. We write so that all people who feel wronged by the corporate forces of the world can know we can know that we are your allies. Sorry about that. We, as one person united, we acknowledge the reality that the future of the human race requires the cooperation of its members, that our system must protect our rights. Upon corruption, that government, it is up to the individuals to protect their own rights and those of their neighbors, that a democratic government derives its just power from the people. But corporations do not seek consent to extract wealth from the people and the earth, and that no true democracy is attainable when the process is determined by economic power. We come to you at a time when corporation, which place profit over people, self-interest over justice, and oppression over equality, run our government. We have peaceably assembled here, as it is our right to let these facts be known. They have taken our houses through an illegal foreclosure process despite not having the original mortgage. They have taken bailouts from taxpayers with impunity, and continue to give executives exorbitant bonuses. They have perpetuated inequality and discrimination in the workplace based on age, the color of one's skin, race, gender, identity, and sexual orientation. They have poisoned the food supply through negligence and undermined the farming system through monopolization. They have profited off the torture, confinement, and cruel treatment of countless animals and actively hide these practices. They have sought to strip employees of the right to negotiate for better pay and safer working conditions. They have held students hostage with tens of thousands of dollars of debt of education, which itself is a human right. They consistently outsource labor and use that outsourcing as leverage to cut workers' health care and pay. They have influenced the courts to achieve the same right as people with none of the culpability or responsibility. They have spent millions of dollars on legal terms that look for ways to get them out of contracts in regard to health insurance. They have sold our privacy as a commodity. They have used the military and police force to profit freedom from the press. They have deliberately declined to recall faulty products, endangering lives in pursuit of profit. They determine economic policy despite the catastrophic failures of their policy has produced and continue to produce. They have donated large sums of money to politicians who are responsible for regulating them. They continue to block alternative forms of energy to consider us dependent on oil. They continue to block generic forms of medicine that could save people's lives or profit relief.
If you'll wrap up, Ms. Lance.
Thank you. I'm sorry. They continue to block generic forms of medicine that could save people's lives or provide relief in order to protect investments that have already been turned into substantial profit. They have purposely covered up oil spills, accidents.
Okay, we need to wrap up. I didn't give you more time. You just need to wrap up, please.
We, Occupy Asheville, urge your participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lance. Okay. Who else wants to talk? Okay.
If I have 8 more people, do I have 10
No,
more
ma'am,
minutes?
you don't. Who? Okay. Let me explain the rules. Whoever raised their hand, the 8 people, you gave up your right to Ms. Landis. So anybody who didn't give up the right, I think I'll recognize Mr. Yelton next.
I get to follow 2 good acts tonight. You better smile on that one, David, real big. Because I told you all it didn't matter what was said. You would go ahead and vote with your staff. And I thank you, Ms. Jones, for bringing up your question about this in the open use category and some facts that were overlooked. And David, please take note of this. Septic tank requirements will control the density in the rural area because you have to have one septic tank area plus a recharge area. And it has to be so many feet from your well. And you can't have more than 25 people on one well or it becomes a public water system. So you have rules and regulations that will cover placement of rentals in the open use area. And I think you overlooked that. Our existing restrictions will work. You heard tonight about the need for rental assistance. You heard tonight that I was wrong. It's 54% of the children in Buncombe County on have reduced or free lunches. And the hospital, 80% pay. AB Tech needs money and more money and help. And we heard the hospital ask for more money and help from the county. We also heard that the hospital gives $74 million in grants. And if they went to Raleigh, they would pick up another $100 million in money. Well, if they didn't issue the grants, they'd only be in the hole $26 million. Habitat for Humanity. You can shake your head, you can smile it off, you can let these things go behind you, but this is the real world in Buncombe County. And part of the reason for the frustration is because there's not a two-way conversation. It's all one-sided. Now, frankly, you've heard some facts tonight, and I'm going to say something that will probably make a lot of people mad at me. But I really don't care, do I, David? In 1900, the average lifespan of the average American was 42 years old. Who in here is past 42? Please hold your hand. David, I know you are. Hold your hand, every one of you are. Because guess what? Today, the average lifespan is 77 plus. So with all of our problems and all of our disagreements, Wanda, we're doing much better today than we were in 1900. And that's why we've got to go back to open communication. We've got to go back to transparency in the finances and some good, honest debate, face to face, in front of everybody. And let's get the real facts, because the real facts will tell the story. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Brother Christopher?
Hey, he held his hand up.
Did you?
He held his hand up.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know who did and who didn't. I just,
Okay. If you held your hand up, you waived your right to Miss Landis. So.
No, I never.
He did.
No, I didn't. I never raised my hand for Lisa.
I saw the glove hand go up.
I'll show the video, dude.
Okay. Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead. We'll hear from you. Go ahead. Now, if you have 8 people that want to waive their right, then you would have 10 minutes. But they can't be the same people, so they've got to have. Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
I'll tell you what. I'll just submit this to
We
you.
broadcast every minute of
I know
our
what you're gonna do
meetings,
it
ma'am.
with.
Go ahead. All right, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead, Brother
Okay.
Christopher.
In my last talk, I was censored, which, hey, you know what? I used to think my dad was a jerk, but I'm going to tell you what, the city council and the county commissions back then could take their licks. Y'all are wimps. URTV, guys, I was going to say, was just an example of how playing with words. It is now a tax, by the way. Now, I was going to read this for Lisa, but I think you got the point. State of the nation. Little reminder, he who does not remember his past is condemned to repeat it. You know what? Y'all made a faux pas. Do you remember the county commission that voted to get rid of your racetrack? Do they still exist? Bye-bye.
That was not county commissioners,
Yeah,
sir.
city council. Go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Now, it is part of the obligation of the county to step in when the city is violating civil rights. That is part of your job, to make sure the city fulfills their job. If I have a problem, like if I have a problem with my supervisor, I go to his supervisor. You're their supervisor. Yeah, you are.
Wish we were.
Dude, I know how government works. I'll bet you can't tell me what the 3 primary rights is in the Constitution that gives you all your Bill of Rights, sir. Well, let me tell you, so I don't embarrass any of you, I asked the city council. Hopefully Gann can answer that. Can you?
Well, just give it a public
Life,
comment.
liberty,
real quick.
and the pursuit of happiness.
Okay.
That are your 3 primary rights established in the Constitution. Your Bill of Rights is listing those 3 rights in more definition. But you know what country we have now? Heil Gantt! Heil Gantt! Heil Gantt! We don't live in a democracy no more. We do not live in a country with free speech by the fact that I was going to use URTV just as an example. You see, that's a sore spot in your butts. Because you know what? You didn't have to kill URTV. You should have sponsored it. And no wonder they win awards. BC2, come on, give me 1.5 mil a year to spend, and I'll give URTV awards up to Bazook. 1.5 mil. And nobody can get an honest audit of your BC2. Why is it? Why won't they share where the money's going? Because I hear that more people are employed to BC2 than what's being shown. How, Mr. Gantt? How, Mr. Gantt? How, Mr. Gantt?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion the man be dismissed.
What? Do I not have the right to free speech, ma'am? Do I not for 3 minutes have a right
Go ahead.
to roast you if I want?
You
Is that
have
not
3
my
minutes. Let's finish up.
constitutional right to stand before my elected officials, as long as I don't cuss, or as long as I don't drop my drawers, isn't it my right? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the county of Buncombe. Buncombe, you know what Buncombe stands for, Bunko? Because y'all are living up to that word. So it's up to you. I come to you, Mr. Gant, whatever your title is, because you don't have signs, and defend the protesters.
Thank you, Mr.
If
Christopher.
you don't, maybe kiss my royal butt.
All right, that's enough.
And
Who's
he won't
next?
Be back. You let him come back. I'll
You
get
got
it.
these people right here, and you got Jerry Rice.
Okay.
That's all you got
Aaron,
left.
Mr. Finley.
I can't believe you let him do that.
My name's Aaron Penland. I'm from South Asheville. Commissioner Gant, fellow commissioners, thank you for the time to be up here to talk with you. You know what I'm here about. I've been coming to this group for over 3.5 years now. We're just now actually starting to make headway with the EPA and hopefully with the county. As of last week, Matt Stone, your inspection and codes enforcer, set and met with an attorney for MacTech, Mr. Billy Clark. One thing that I'd like to ask and find out is that we've gotten our group that was appointed by you, Citizens Monitoring Committee. If there's any way possible, whenever you get any information from the EPA or vice versa, NC Diener, if we could send it to the president of our group so that we can notify the people in the community. Also, I'd like to find out if any information has been received by the county as to what is going on with the building. Are they going to go ahead and renovate it, or are they going to tear the building down? I mean, you could spend $50,000 or $60,000 on that building, and it would not be up to code. Another thing that I would like to ask also is we've tried this ourselves before in trying to obtain the past scoring results for the building. Supposedly they've tried to score it 4 separate times. We were actually told by one agent from the Environmental Protection Agency that she would fill out the paperwork for us. Well, within 2 weeks, she denied it and said that we could not get those papers. So I would like to come to you as a citizen of Buncombe County, to our legal department, and ask if someone could draft up a letter requesting all of the scorings for the last 4 times that it has been scored. We just want to make sure we've got all of our facts straight and in a row. There's been a lot of underhanded things done on this site, a lot of things behind doors where people have talking and no telling what's happened in there. But when it's all said and done, all that will come out. But right now, our major concern is for the people that live in that area. Right now, when you have the EPA on site, you have the ERRB unit there. That's the Emergency Research and Recovery Group, okay? That group is typically sent to where there's a plane crash or a bus flipped or a diesel spill. So they're treating this as an ongoing emergency, and they have been for over 20 years. I was hoping Ms. Harris was here. I saw her here a little while ago, but I was wondering if someone could ask that question and find out what's going on, why the EERB is here, and if we could please get those scores from the past 4 times that they've been tried. I guess that's it. Thank you for your time.
Can we get that information to him? Everything you've asked for, we'll do our best to get or provide for you, Mr. Penland.
Also, I'm sorry for that. I meant to say when we started. The last time we were here.
Why don't we have you talk with her after the meeting so we can get there by on public comment? Thank you, though. Any other public comment? Anybody that had not given up their right to talk?
Can they speak to the?
Yeah, hold on.
Can one to speak to the?
They all held their hands up.
Okay, can we speak to the building? Just take Commissioner Bailey suggests we speak to the building. Do we know what the status is to answer that part of it right now?
No, sir. Their deadline would be close of business tomorrow to reply to the certified mail. They have 10 days from receipt of the certified mail, the decision of Matt Stone as permits director, and I don't know what they'll do.
So, but we can get this to the president of the advisory committee. And Mr. Penn, let's get it straight to Aaron, too. I don't know who is the president of the group.
I believe all that, wasn't it emailed to your group from Matt Stone, was it not?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
He did send one saying that he would contact us, let us know. I just wanted to make sure or see if it has came out yet or not. Because the last time when they filed their appeal, there was a little bit of, they say
Okay.
they got it in time. They had a 10-day cutoff, but
Similar rules would have.
Until after the cutoff had been
10-day rules would apply. They kick in after receipt of any notification. And in this case here, too, I know Matt Stone is aware of the particular email addresses and will forward any decision or any appeal that is received.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I did not give up my right. I came in as Lisa was speaking.
Come up then, say your name and where you're from then, ma'am.
My
Thank
name
you.
is Anne-Marie Hordowski, and I live
If you'll get near the microphone, it'll be better for us. Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Anne-Marie Hornowski. I live here in Asheville. I'm a student at UNCA. I wanted to finish reading the Declaration of the Occupation of Asheville that Lisa did not get to finish reading. They determine economic policy. Despite the catastrophic failures their policies have produced and continue to produce, they have donated large sums of money to politicians who are responsible for regulating them. They continue to block alternative forms of energy to keep us dependent on oil. They continue to block generic forms of medicine that could save people's lives or provide relief in order to protect investments that they have already turned a substantial profit. They have purposefully covered up oil spills, accidents, faulty bookkeeping, and inactive ingredients in pursuit of profit. They purposefully keep people misinformed and fearful through their control of the media. They have accepted private contracts to murder prisoners even when presented with serious doubts about their guilt. They have perpetuated colonialism at home and abroad, and they have participated in the torture and murder of innocent civilians overseas. They continue to create weapons of mass destruction in order to receive government contracts. To the people of the world, we, Occupy Asheville General Assembly, urge you to assert your power. Exercise your right to peaceably assemble, occupy public space, create a process to address the problems we face, and generate solutions that are accessible to everyone. To all the communities that take action and form groups in the spirit of direct democracy, we offer support, documentation, and all of the resources at our disposal. The website for this global movement is occupytogether.org, and our personal branch of it is occupyasheville.org. We have general assemblies every day now and pickets around downtown to raise awareness for this cause. We urge you to come by, support our cause, and see what the people have to say and have your own voices heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Warnowski. Any other public comment tonight? Yes, sir. Mr. Stanley?
My name is Eric Penland. I'm from the Arden area. And I was just really curious about, this whole thing with the CTS has been going on for so many years and has been drug out and drug out. And what I don't understand is when you had made the comment, Mr. Gant, that the building was going to be torn down, and then they turn around and they say, well, they're not going to tear it down. If they can stick some boards up over the windows to keep people out, they're going to leave the building. This stuff, we've come to you guys for so many times asking for help, and it's just, there's nothing being done. And the longer this keeps going, the more this is going to spread and the more people it's going to hurt. And, I don't know what all you guys can do, where your authority actually stops, but we just implore you guys, if you would, to put the pressure on the people and tell them they've got to tear it down, because once they tear that building down, they can actually find out what's underneath it. And we know that's where the barrels are, and that's where the stuff is that's killing people. And we just ask you guys, please, just go wide open, because this is something that's killing people, and we need your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Penn. We're going to help you, and we have to follow the procedure the law gives us. And Mr. Frue, if you just comment on that.
Well, the county staff has done exactly what this commission has had and done its very best to ride herd on the responsible responding agencies, be it DNR and EPA, for several years now. I know that the Penland spoke about EPA taking forever, and that the group out there wants to have complete information. Well, the EPA works in very slow ways, and they don't typically produce material until they're certain of the results that they have obtained. And unfortunately, it just does take a long time, and we'll just have to wait and see what the Mills Gap Roads Associates does in response to the order to have the building torn down.
It is
now,
frustrating.
We got in a problem on condemnation. I thought we were going to condemn the building and tear it down. But
we have.
What stopped us there?
We're in the middle of that process, and I know that there was a comment a couple weeks ago that we were tearing it down, and I think that was wishful thinking. We were negotiating with Mills Gap Road Associates, and they were considering giving a consent to go ahead and tear it down, but they reversed track, so we had to go with straight old-fashioned condemnation, and that's what we're in the midst of.
We're in the midst of the condemnation.
Yes, sir.
We get that condemnation is going down.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Leanne Smith, and I live really close to the CTS site in Arden. One of our concerns is that the condemnation notice is dated. What's posted on the site at CTS is dated August 31st. On August 14th, I was asked by an EPA official to come out. I'm sorry, September 14th. On September 14th, I was asked by an EPA official to come, Carter Williamson, to come out and join a variety of people on that afternoon at the CTS site. The demolition contractor was there, the asbestos abatement contractor was there, Mountain Environmental, an environmental consulting firm was there. There were representatives from county planning, county health, as well as contractor Taylor and Murphy, and several county representatives. OTI, who is the EPA contractor, they were all there. I watched them unlock the gate and go on site for what appeared to be the beginning of the demolition procedure. And it's hard for me to explain my joy and how happy I felt on that day. The asbestos abatement was, from what I understand, was going to take about 2 weeks. And then it was going to be about another 6 to 8 weeks for the building to come down. That was September 14th. On September 15th, Carter said, did you hear the news? Sorry, Carter Williamson with the EPA, and I said, no, I didn't. And he said, we have to quit, we have to stop the work because there's been an appeal. So you can imagine my devastation at that. And we are concerned that our efforts at trying to do what needs to be done to get this cleaned up and do the right thing move so slowly, yet efforts to stop it, to cease and desist, excuse me, move so quickly and efficiently. And this is really difficult. I have 2 children who have had health concerns, and people in my community have many health concerns. And it's just a very frustrating situation, and we know you all are concerned about it, and we appreciate your willingness to work with us on it. But it's very confusing to us in the community when we see something like that happen, and then, just immediately 1 day later, it's a stop. So thank you for hearing us out and for anything.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. It is frustrating, and sometimes the appeal rights, when you take someone's property away from them, even if they're bad people, even if they're people that do things that are not appropriate, we still have to respect they own property and that we have to follow the law. If we don't, then that could probably delay the whole thing even more. So I think, even as frustrating it is, it's better to go by the letter of the rule and follow our attorney and the legal process and do it right so that we don't have to redo it and start over again.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I do understand how frustrating it is. Until just a few weeks or months ago, EPA did not want the building structure to come down, and then they told us the structure could come down, the slab has to stay in place. We did send in consultants to do an assessment of the asbestos. We have hired a contractor. We are ready to go and bring the building down, but Mills Gap did change their mind and filed an appeal, and you've heard me say in the room that CTS carries a promissory note for Mills Gap, and that does play a role in the delay and the appeal process. So as soon as the time runs, we're ready to roll.
One question I do have is, will there be any type of interference or anything whereas Mr. Clark serving for MACTEC?
Let me have Mr. Frue answer you afterwards.
I was just going to say, just very quickly, that nothing we're doing, nothing in this condemnation process is slowing down EPA or DNR. I mean, that's just a process that it's going to take how long it's going to take.
Okay. If I could just have the dialogue after Mr. Penland, that might be better. And you can ask, if you'll stay to speak to Mr. Penland, that'd be good. Any other public comment tonight? Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
two housekeeping things and one money matter. First one, at the last meeting, Mr. Chairman, was Ms. Landis was very embarrassed and lambasted by the chairman while you were gone, the vice
I
chair.
don't want to hear this. He's going to get personal. Get him out of here.
Okay, let's why don't you just talk about the policy? What you're.
Well, I'm talking about the vice chair, so if that's personal, he ought to resign from office.
Okay, go ahead.
Dave, you gonna
Anyway, the point is that we need to have order behind the desk as well as here at the podium. And I'd like for you to look into that and make sure it don't happen again.
Yep. Okay,
the other thing is under the public minutes. The public minutes have been taken out of the minutes, and the people that's speaking in public, their minutes or their voice is not being counted. They're only documented that they are here. Now, the lawyer will say they don't have to do that. I don't care what he has to say, but the point is they've been documented for years, so why now and who voted? Did this commission vote in public? No. Somebody decided to take this out. I'd like to know the answer to that. I asked it at the last meeting, and I'd like to know the answer. Who voted to take that out of the minutes? Because public minutes ought to reflect what it's designed to do. The other thing, on the firearms of retiring deputies, I think is 9 or 10. $2,500, $1,500, or $1,000 goes a long ways when it comes to people's life in our community and social service and how many lives that money could touch. If the firearms, which I just asked about, sold for $450 as the market would on a used firearm, that'd be $4,500 for 10 deputies. That gets these at retirement. I would like to ask y'all to ask the sheriff to consider selling these weapons rather than giving them as gifts and donate that money back to the community to be used for services in the community. And because most of these people that are getting these firearms, they always used to, they'd wear them in extras in their boots. So I know they've already got firearms, even more than one. So I would like to bring that to your attention because I think our money ought to go, and I don't think the deputies would have a problem with that if we ask them personally.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rice. There's been no change in our policy as far as minutes that I'm aware of. Is that accurate?
Actually, we're following the recommendation of the Institute of Government. You only have to document that you held public comment and say who spoke, and that's what we have done. And that was an administrative move. It was not something we brought to you. It was just following the School of Government's instructions.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comment tonight? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. We're adjourned.